Welcome to day 15 and lab 25. In the previous lab, we have implemented security for Windows application, and in this lab, we will implement security for web applications. Now, there is a big difference in the way security is implemented in web applications and the way the security is implemented in Windows application. Now, Windows application, they run inside the computer, so things are very different. While web application, they run over the internet. In other words, your web application is hosted on some server, and anybody who interacts to that web app, it uses the HTTP protocol, it uses the request response model. So for web applications, we can implement security by using Windows authentication, forms authentication, and passport authentication. Now, I'm not going to go in details of all of these authentication mechanism. If you wish, right, what you can do is you can go to the .NET and ASP.NET fundamental section, where we have covered more details about each one of these authentication mechanism. For now, we will be using forms authentication to implement security in our web app. So the first thing what we'll do is, let's go ahead and create a simple screen here called as the login screen. So let me just go and create a simple page here called as login.aspx, and let me press OK. Now in this login screen, let's go ahead and create two text boxes and one button. So one text box will take the username, the other text box will take the password, and we'll have one submit button which will help us to go and validate if this user is proper or not. So let's go ahead and open the toolbox, and we'll go and create a very simple screen which will take the username and password, and we'll have one very simple button here which will actually go and push all these details to the server for validation. Okay, so you can see that I have drag and dropped one label and one text box for username. In the same way, I will drag and drop one label and one text box for password, as well as I will also need one button here. So I'm going to go and drag and drop one button which will help me to go and submit this username and password to the server. Also, let me quickly go and put proper text and naming conventions to this label. So this I will name it as LBL username, the text as username. This text box will take the username, so I'm going to go and make this text box name as txt username. In the same way, I will name this label as LBL password, this also as txt password, and this button as btn login, right, and the name on the button will be login. Right, now in order to enable forms authentication in our web application, we have to make couple of modifications in our web.config file. So just let me go and open my web.config file here. Now, before I move ahead, I hope and I believe that you are watching this video after you have gone through the fundamental videos of ASP.NET authentication and authorization. If you have not, then this thing would be a bit difficult to digest. Okay, so my suggestion would be, in case you have not gone still, please go back, see the videos, and then again restart this video. Okay, but overall, let me tell you what I'm going to do here. We're going to define three things here. First, we are going to go and enable forms authentication. Second, we need to give the start URL, which will actually pop up, or the start page, which will actually run when this application runs, and that is nothing but the login.aspx will be the start URL, and then the pages which will be running, or I'll say the home page which will run after the authentication is done. So three things we have to define here. First, we will enable forms authentication. Second, we will give the start page, and third, we will give the page which will be seen once the authentication is done. So in order to enable forms authentication, let's go ahead to the web.config file. Let's type here authentication, and let's type mode equal to. Now you can see when we type mode equal to, now there are lots of ways by which you can do authentication, but we are going to go and select forms because that's the authentication mechanism we are going to use currently for this web application. Right, now the next thing what we need to define here, now once that we have defined, okay, the authentication is going to be by using forms authentication mechanism, the next thing what we have to define is that, okay, what is going to be the start page which will run when the application runs, and second, once the validation is done, what is the home page which will run. Okay, so those two pages we need to define here. Now definitely the start page which we would like to run is the login.aspx page, and the home page which we would like to run after the validation is done is nothing but the customer data entry.aspx page. So now in order to define the what you call the start page as well as the the subsequent pages, right, we're going to use the forms tag. So in the forms tag, we use the login URL property to define the start page which will run. So currently our start page is the login.aspx page. And once, the user has validated his user ID and password, we would like, that customer data entry.aspx page should start running as the home page. So you can see that by using the forms tag there, what I've done is I've defined the start page as login.aspx, and once the login.aspx page is successfully validated, we want the customer data entry.aspx page to run after that. So by using the forms tag, we have defined what our start page will be and what our subsequent pages will be. Now, one very important point to note about web applications is that on internet, right, when your application is on internet, right, anybody can come to your website, right? For example, if you have google.com, anybody can type google.com, right? But because you are trying to implement security in your application, you want to deny all those users who are anonymous. So you can see that I have used the deny user tag, and I have said by defining the question mark that any kind of user who is anonymous will not be allowed to come to my site, right? So now that we have done all the changes, now it is time to go and open our login.aspx page, and let's start writing some behind code. Now the first step, what we need to do in our behind code is we have to import two namespaces. One namespace is nothing but our middle tier, because in our middle tier we have a user component which has a login logic, which will help us to go and validate if this user is proper or not. Second, because we are using forms authentication, we need to ensure that we also import system.web.security namespace so that we can implement forms authentication. So now the next thing is in the btn login click, let's go ahead and create an object of a user. And to this user object, we're going to go and pass two things. One is we're going to go and pass him the username, and the other thing which we are going to go and pass him is the password. Okay. So if you remember right, our username, for the username we have created one nice text box called as txt username. So whatever is typed in txt username will be set to the obj user.username property, and whatever is typed in the txt password will be set to the obj user.password property. And if you also remember that our user object or user class had a isValid function which will return true if the entered user is proper. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, if obj.user.isValid is true, then please go ahead and use the forms authentication class and redirect from the login page to the home page. Our home page currently is customer data entry.aspx, and to the redirect login page we need to go and pass him the username, and also if you want to go and persist the cookie or not. Now in case if you are not understanding this statement, forms authentication dot redirect from login page, I will again suggest please go back to the fundamental videos of .NET and ASP.NET fundamentals, and please go and see the complete authentication authorization videos what we have recorded. Okay, so there we are done with the logic. So you can see as soon as a person clicks on the login button, we'll go and create the object of the user, right? The object of the class user, will pass him the username and password. We'll check if it is valid. If it is valid, then we'll say, okay, now redirect from the login page to the rest of the pages of the site, or else stand where you are. So now that we have done all our programming, let's go ahead and build the solution. No errors, 0 errors, 2 warnings. Let's exclude the warnings for now. So that looks everything fine. Let me go and run this. Oops, there is a problem. You can see that he has actually gone ahead and ran my Windows forms. So let me just go ahead and ensure that we run our web application as startup. Okay, so I've just right clicked and said that, okay, please go ahead and run my web application as startup. So you can see now, once I've run the application, you can see my website is now running. And the most important thing which I need to point out here is that because we defined our start page as login.aspx page, and we said that deny any kind of user who are anonymous, what has happened is he had just went ahead and executed my login page first. And he's saying that until you don't put the user ID and password properly over here, I will not let you go and navigate the rest of the pages, right? So that's the importance of the login URL which we had defined in our forms tag. Okay, so what I'll do is let me go ahead and put my username and password here. Now let me go and open my SQL Server, because upfront I don't remember the username and password. So let me just go and open my SQL Server from here. So there is my database, mycustdb. Let me go and open the table where all our users are stored. So we have one user Shiv and pass @123. So if I type here Shiv and pass @123, and if I click on login, you can see I have validated. But before I go ahead, there's one big problem here. The problem is this password. Just very quickly before I move ahead with other things. Now this pass @123 should not be visible like this on the screen, right? It should be masked. In other words, there should be some kind of a star or a dot, rather than seeing the data directly. So let's first go and try to fix this thing, because I think this thing is very important here. When anybody goes and types something on the password, the password should not be visible on the computer. It should be either masked with a star or a dot. So how do we do that? So let's again go back to our Visual Studio. So in order to make your text box as a password text box, go and select your text box that is a password text box, and you can see in your text mode there is a value called as password here. So you need to go and define the text mode as password. So I'm going to go and select this as password. Now let me go and run my application again to see that if my password is visible or not. So I'll go and type Shiv in this username. Now when I type something in the password, you can see that it is now masked with dots. So in that way, anybody who is probably sitting behind your screen does not see the password, right? So by using the text mode, we can make our normal text box as a password enabled text box. So now so what we'll do is first let's go ahead and put some invalid user. So when I click on invalid user, you can see the screen stands where it is. And if I go and put some valid user, for example Shiv and pass @123, and if I click on login, you will see that he is allowing me to enter the screen, or he's allowing me to enter the site. So in this video, we saw that how we can go and enable forms authentication on our web application. So it was a 3-step process. The first step, what we did is we went ahead and we created a simple login screen. Then we went into the web config file and we enabled forms authentication by using mode equal to forms. We also defined our start page as well as our subsequent pages. We said that deny all the users who are anonymous, and then in the login click, right, in the behind code click, we ensure that we check the user from the database, and we call the forms.redirect login page function. Okay. So by using these 4 or 5 steps, we were easily able to enable forms authentication on our web application. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. In this video, we were trying to understand how we can enable forms authentication on web applications. Thank you so much. Now, whatever video you have seen, right, is just a glimpse of what we have done. So in case you are interested in our video package, you can go to our site, that is www.questpond.com. You can call on this number and you can ask the complete DVD package what we have. So in this DVD package, what we have done is basically we have covered almost everything what a .NET developer wants. So right from basics of ASP.NET, Object-Oriented Programming, SQL Server, to new technologies like WCF, Silverlight, Link, Azure, Entity Framework. We also have UML, architecture, estimation, project management. There is a complete invoicing project end-to-end which is covered, so that you can get a better feel of how to actually create projects in a systematic manner. We have covered server products, both for SharePoint 2007 as well as for 2010. We have a lot of best practices video on SQL Server, etc. So this complete package, you can get from www.questpond.com if you're interested, and you can call on this number and you can ask for the rates. It's a very decent rate what we have. In the same way, as compared to the videos, we also have one more product with us, that is our interview question books. So we have different kinds of interview question books, right from .NET interview questions to SQL Server interview questions, SharePoint interview questions, BizTalk interview questions, etc. So in case you are interested in the books part, you can call on these numbers as per your location. So you can see these numbers on the board at this moment. So I hope that you keep enjoying the videos, you keep seeing our site, and I hope that you gain more knowledge. Thank you very much.